Good morning once again, everyone. I'm very, very thankful that you all could join me once again, every time, every time. We left off yesterday at the end of Exodus 13, where the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire were leading the children of Israel to this spot that we're about to come up on. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel that they turn and encamp before Pihahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, over against Belzephon, before it shall ye encamp by the sea. It's this little spot right here. Here is the Nuweiba beach, and as you can see, this little path run in here. This is the spot of land connected to Pihahiroth, and once that you reach this beach, there is no turning back. You are literally in between the sea and the Egyptians. You can't go any other way. You're stuck. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the wilderness hath shut them in. This word entangled kind of has an implication of confused as well. He thought that they didn't know where they were going. He actually believed that these idiot slaves, they're lost in the wilderness, is very, because I'm certain that he had heard about, they thought that the land of Canaan would be given to them. So he probably thought they would go directly to Canaan. Now they're lost. And the Hittites are located in the Canaanite land. So it would have seemingly have been a more advantageous move for Israel if they would have journeyed to the Canaanite land. Now this is in human thinking, because the Hittites dwelled there, and the Hittites were not good buddies with the Egyptians. But now Pharaoh sees that they have went south of the they've actually went completely in the other direction, not having a clue why that they were doing this, and he just thought they were probably lost in the desert. So he says, well, let's go get them, since they're not going to be around our enemies. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that he shall follow after them, and I will be honored upon Pharaoh and upon all his hosts, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people. And they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? I could think of plenty of different reasons why they did this, but how quickly the faithless heart forgets. And yeah, I know a lot of believers that do this. I'm probably guilty of it myself. Just forgetting about not only the goodness of God and how good that He is to us, for no reason other than because He's good, but also the trials and the tests that He puts us through and the things that we've survived. We quickly forget about the chastising effect of God and the works that He puts us through. It's to learn. It's for us to learn, and how quickly we forget the lesson. And he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots and all the chariots of Egypt and captains over every one of them. Notice, he didn't just take 600 chariots. He took 600 chosen chariots and all the chariots of Egypt. Because these were a lot of people that they were going to have to go and bring back. So there was probably thousands of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel, and the children of Israel went out with a high hand. You're probably telling yourself right now, well, there you go. It tells us right there, God is the one that's hardening his heart so that he can go trap him in the Red Sea, him and all his people, and kill every one of them. It's just that God's setting up a trap for him. Nope. Remember, verse 5 we read, And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people, Israel. And they said, Why have we done this, that we have let us people go? See, his heart was already hardened again. God didn't even have to do this, but God was making sure that his heart was hardened on the journey there. But the Egyptians pursued after them all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea beside Pihahiroth, before Belzephon. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And they said unto Moses, Because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? See, they're mocking Moses now. They said, because there was so much death in Egypt, now you bring us out here to die. Because you didn't want us buried there, you want us buried out here. So it's sarcasm added into this. They've completely lost faith. Even after all that they've already seen, they've completely lost faith. And imagine the dire situation that they're in and how much that we can learn from them. They were literally in between a rock and a hard place. And so they had nowhere to go. Not only that, they were running out of time. Like, death was quickly pursuing after them. They had gotten word, here come the Egyptians. Probably had somebody watching and stuff. But here comes the Egyptians, they're coming after us. And, but what a perfect place in order to test someone's faith. And God says, see, even through the impossible, I'll bring you through the impossible. You say, there is no way I can get out of this situation. God has not helped me even in lighter situations. That's what we usually say whenever it's what I say whenever I've been, God hasn't been helping me in these little things. Why should I expect him in these big things? And he really has. He's been helping me the whole time. And then he makes those impossible pathways open right up and puts dry land right underneath it so that you can walk. It's lovely. Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt? The Israelites are saying to Moses, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians, for it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. And this right here is one of my favorite verses in all the Bible. And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you this day. For the Egyptians, whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. No, that's better than any movie quote you're ever going to find. And this has eternal implications with it. He says you'll never see these people again, ever. The people hunting after you, desiring your life. Don't worry, this is the last day. And that day is coming for all of us as well, Christians. That day is definitely coming for all of us as well. Imagine the people that go to hell. They're still surrounded by their enemies. They're still, and even worse, they're surrounded by people in whom are the worst of the worst. I remember Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen, right before he died, he said, I want to go to hell because all the interesting people are there. What do you think? You're going to have conversations with them? You think you're going to go down there and party? There's not even water allowed down there. You think there's music playing? Nothing but weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth. And by the way, all the greatest people go to heaven. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Lord said unto Moses, Wherefore criest thou unto me, speaking to the children of Israel, that they go forward? I really do like this verse because he's saying, Moses, why are you praying to me? Make the people go. You see, there's a time for prayer, and then there's a time for action. And I remember Leonard Ravenhill, he used to say all the time, he used to speak on, you need to pray 6-7 hours a day. And he admired men that did that. I admire men that do that if there's a great need for it. But if there's no need for it, there's things to be done. Like, God didn't give you, a whole body to do work and to do stuff and to go out and accomplish and talk. So just spread the gospel, do something. Go to work, feed your family, help the poor, do something. You don't have to pray all the time. Jesus even speaks against that. He says, don't have repetitive words in your prayers, he said, like the heathen do. Don't do as the pagans do. God knows what you want before you even pray to him. Oftentimes, the Holy Spirit will pray for you because you don't really know what to pray. You don't know when to pray. I don't, most of the time. But lift thou up thy rod, and stretch out thine hand over the sea, and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them, and I will get me honor upon Pharaoh and upon all his host, upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. Another clear indication that God is wanting even the Egyptians to know that he's the Lord. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, very important verse. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed, meaning he moved, and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. Anytime that it says angel of the Lord, you got to kind of wonder if it's Christ in the Old Testament, because they would have seen Jesus as an angel, and an angel often appeared as a man to them. It's only, I think, one instance that I can recall where they actually had wings, and it was two women angels that have wings. I think it's in the book of Zechariah. But I believe that this is Christ right here. So this pillar of a cloud, pillar of fire, is now moving behind them instead of in front of them. He began guiding them. Now we see him protecting them from the Egyptians. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. This is such a great depiction of how the lost, how the people, the children of darkness, as they're called, the blinded ones that Satan has blinded, how they view God. They view God as evil. And I can prove that very easily. This is probably the most known atheist in the entire world. And he said of God, the very God that we're reading right now, he said of him, the God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction. Jealous and proud of it, a petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty, ethnic cleanser, a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully. That's the most hateful thing that anyone's ever said about anyone. And he said that about the God of the Old Testament. Notice what he begins this with. He says, he is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction because he doesn't believe the Bible. So that means that out of Freddy Krueger, Jason, Voorhees, Michael Myers, Chucky, the devil himself, it, the clown, whatever, name any monster out of any book, any movie, any and all monsters, horrifying, evil monsters. Richard Dawkins, the atheist, says that our God is more evil than them. That's mind-blowing, and this is the perfect way to show how they hate God. They view God as the enemy. We view him as the Savior, our best friend. They view him as their worst enemy. And I believe that it's perfectly depicted right here in Exodus 14:20. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. So it took hours in order to do this. It actually took hours in order to separate these waters. And that's what I gather from this verse. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. How much of a wall was this? Well, in my studies I heard that the waters could have been as high as 900 feet. Now remember, it says that there are walls unto them. Now, but how deep is this part of the Red Sea, the arm of the Red Sea? The Gulf of Aqaba. Bank of America is 921 feet tall. I heard that it's as deep as 900 feet in the deepest part of this crossing. So it'd have been around the same height as Dallas, Texas's Bank of America Plaza, which is the largest building in Texas. And we know how big Texas likes their stuff. But I also heard reports that it's as deep as anywhere from 300, 320, 400, 500. Well, just for scope, right here is the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's 455 feet tall, and it's big too. Still big. Doesn't matter which one you choose. Just for scope, you can see the people down here and just how they're on literally they're not even as tall as the second stones, like the lowest stones of the pyramid, and look at all these other stones above. Couldn't even see the top of it. This would have been a massive body of water and very terrifying. I believe that we can read more specifics about this night in Psalm 77. The waters saw thee, O God, the waters saw thee, they were afraid. The depths also were troubled. Tells you that even the waters are scared of God. The clouds poured out water, the skies sent out a sound, thine arrows also went abroad. The voice of thy thunder was in the heaven, the lightnings lightened the world, the earth trembled and shook. So thunder, lightning, huge, huge thunderstorm this night, and the earth trembled and shook. This was a dramatic event. This would have been incredibly bizarre to see. Especially, man, what a time to be alive, man. Just what a time. Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known. Thou leddest thy people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So here you have this huge walls of water surrounding you, knowing that at any moment you could die. Thunder, hail, lightning, earthquakes, seemingly. All of these things, everything is just in this huge pillar right behind you, supernatural pillar that you've been following, so you know this is all the work of the Lord, and all of a sudden you're terrified. You have to be terrified. The only way that I could have got through that is with the peace of God upon me. I mean, because imagine because it's 9 miles that they're having to walk. 9 miles. It takes an energetic, healthy, normal person 2 hours to walk 9 miles. Now, given all the children and the millions and millions of them, I'm guessing, this is my estimation, it took anywhere from 6 to 8 hours to cross. Anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, counting the cattle and everybody. 6 to 8 hours. That whole 6 to 8 hours, I'm moving, there's not going to be I'm not camping out right in the middle, so this would have been a terrifying thing. But then comes to mind Psalm 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. That's the only way I could have gotten through that. That's the only way. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud. So this is the Lord looking out of the pillar of fire and cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians. So I believe that tells us this angel of the Lord was Christ. I don't think you need much more evidence than this one verse. Okay, now before I get into this next verse, let me ask you a question. Why didn't this pillar of fire just burn up the Egyptians whenever he had them on the land? Why didn't the Lord just burn them up right there? He could have easily have killed them. And also let this be a showing that the damned, the enemies of God, they go themselves. They go themselves into their own destruction. God's not making them do this, okay? He's not making them. They want to do this. They want to put themselves in the wrath of God. Further showing that the people in hell are there because of their own decision. It's their own making that they're there. But why didn't the Lord just burn them up on the sea or on the seashore? And I believe that it's the reason why he didn't burn them up on dry ground and waited till this. Very good reason. And the Lord took off their chariot wheels, that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. What a curious thing. that it would actually mention how the Lord took off their chariot wheels, isn't it? It's very strange. Now, thousands of years later, what do we find in this very same spot? Chariot wheels at the bottom of the Red Sea, at the very same place where they crossed. Amazing. I personally believe that the Lord did that for a very specific purpose so that we would find these thousands of years later. That's what I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe that the Lord did that for this purpose so that we would see proof of what he did. Not only are there chariot wheels, but Ron Wyatt, back in the 1970s, he actually found 2 pillars erected by King Solomon years and years after this event to commemorate this event. Archaeologists found 2 pillars that King Solomon put on both beaches to commemorate the Red Sea crossing. He wrote the whole story on them. So on one of the pillars, we actually see the entire story to commemorate the Exodus account. So King Solomon fully believed it. David believed it. All of them believed it. And once again, right here is the crossing route. There was one pillar right here, and then there was another pillar right over here to commemorate exactly where they crossed. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. I love this because it shows how the Lord he's wanting Moses to show his authority, his God-given authority in doing this. He says, Moses, now you just raise up, and I'm going to let you make the call. It's like the coach letting the quarterback make the call, or at least let him take the glory for the call. And he's doing this in order to show, or participate in the glory. But he's doing this in order to show the Israelites a very clear showing of how this is the leader. This is the shepherd that God wants over them. Listen to this man. God will speak to him. You all listen to him. He'll speak to you. Very clear showing. And we see this also after our deaths, how God allows us to partake in his glory, meaning heaven and glorified bodies. No more sorrow, no more tears, no more aches, no more pains, no more missing, no more worry, no anxiety, no nothing. It's all good. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it, and the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them, all dead. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. It's just reiterating what the Israelites, showing the contrast between how God helped them and how God killed the others. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. Just as God, it said, he tells Christ, sit thee at my right hand till I make thine enemies thy footstool. Paul tells us in the New Testament, he says, in just a little while, Satan will be placed under your feet. God puts the enemies of the Israelites right at their feet, dead as doornails. And I believe that he allowed them to see the dead bodies because whenever you're a slave, literally your entire life, whenever you're a slave from your birth all the way up until whatever age, it's hard for you to reckon that you're free. So the last and final thing that the Lord allowed these people to see was their slave owners dead at their feet. The people that had beaten them, dead at their feet. No more of them. Just as Moses said, you'll see them no more forever. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. That was the final objective that God wanted done, and it was done. He wanted the people first to fear him. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Believe in him. So they believed and followed his servant. Okay? Though it took a lot of the Lord's doing in order to change these people's hearts from 40 years before, looking at Moses as saying, who's made you a ruler over us? To all of a sudden them fearing the Lord, believing the Lord, and believing Moses. So God has changed the hearts of the people. Okay. And that was the final objective in doing this, setting them free, delivering them, setting them free, relieving them of their enemies, and getting them to fear and believe, both he and Moses. So this is the study for Exodus 14. Lord willing, we'll pick up in Exodus 15 tomorrow. God of peace be with you. Amen.